To start off today's session, may I invite Mr. Lau Ping Cheung, Governor of our Hong Kong Foundation and Managing Director of BL Asset Management Company Limited, onto the stage to deliver the opening remarks. Mr. Lau, please.
Governors, advisors, Jane, Prakash, Nury, and more importantly, Prakash father, Mr. Mahbubani Senior, our 90-year-old Mahbubani Senior is with us today to show support to Prakash. Big welcome to Mr. Mahbubani Senior. Let me refer to my text, just in case. Today we are indeed honored to have invited a member from the local Indian community, Mr. Prakash Mahbubani. As I said, the Mahbubani family is also here with us, and we are also very moved that Mr. Mahbubani Senior take times out to come here, even though at his age, I think he would prefer to to participate physically at this session, and that's very nice of him. When I was first asked to make opening remark for this event, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to say, because I knew very little about the Indians in Hong Kong, let alone Prakash himself. All right, but then I remember when I was a kid, I had my first encounter with the Indians, but in a very dramatic way. How dramatic? Let me tell you what. In our old days, when I was a kid, we didn't have refrigerators. All right, we don't have fridge at home. Where I lived in squatter areas in Shao Kee Wan. One of our friends actually is come from, is teaching at Sai Wan Hoi in Shao Kee Wan. That's where I spent my childhood there. And my mother would go to the market twice a day, one in the morning, one in the evening, where the women will chat and exchange their news among themselves. And my mother was one of them. And sometimes my mother would take me along to the market. And in those days, we did not have a shopping mall, neither had we any supermarkets. Most of the hawkers were actually street hawkers, as you imagine. In those days, in the early days, street hawkers were very common. And I would go with my mother, maybe sometimes, okay? And my first encounter with the Indians were when some of these hawkers were quite unorderly, then the police would come. Police would come, they would come maybe in group of 5 or 7 or 10, usually led by a Caucasian officer, together with some Chinese policemen, and among them also some tall guys with dark skin, big eyes, with a mustache, with a beard, also with a turban around their head, all right, and wearing green safari suits. Those were typical English or British policeman outfits. And we call them 大頭綠衣. I know the Chinese would know 大頭綠衣 means. Literally means big hat, green uniform. 大頭綠衣. And when the hawkers saw those policemen coming, they would be running away, running around, and quite messy and quite orderly and sometimes quite dangerous. And this is what we call 走鬼, you know, literally meaning running away from the devils. They call the policemen devils, all right? So that's how I first came across Indians, because these tall guys in dark skin with the big eyes, with a mustache, with a beard, and with a turban on their head, and then with a green safari suits, they were actually Indian policemen brought in by the British military because of historical reason. As you know, India and Hong Kong were both British colonies in those days. All right, that was my first encounter with the Indians. Then gradually, I had some friends who were Indians. I also set foot on India back in, I think, maybe 15 or 16 years ago, when I went to Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Bangalore, where the IT industry were very strong, because the company I worked for were developing a software industrial park in northern part of China. So this is how I came to know that the Indians are actually very strong in software, in IT technologies, etc. Then came 2016, when the then chief executive, the Honorable C.Y. Leung, took a 40-strong delegation from Hong Kong at the invitation of Indian government. We then met up with, as you know, Narendra Modi, who was Prime Minister and who is still Prime Minister today, and he just won a third consecutive term, where both sides exchange views on economic development and cooperation, etc. So that is my encounter with the Indians. But back to today's event, the Hong Kong talk series, it may seem very introverted to you because it's just Hong Kong, but actually this is not, because our foundation is a well-facing and outward-looking international think tank. Besides, as you know, Hong Kong is a melting pot where East meets West. We are a truly vibrant international metropolis. This High Tea Talk series was first launched in October 2023 with an aim to inviting and enabling, in particular, foreigners like many of you here today, who are living and working in Hong Kong, to allow and to enable friends like you to tell not only good Hong Kong stories, but more importantly, true and factual Hong Kong stories to the international and local communities. We have top niche speakers with diverse ethnic heritage in Hong Kong. We had British, we have Americans, we have Jewish, and now today we have Indian. They will be able to tell you and tell us, more importantly, from their own perspective and from their own personal experience in Hong Kong. As you may know, this year marks the 10th anniversary of the establishment of our Hong Kong Foundation, for which I understand that Jane will be announcing a series of events to celebrate and mark the 10th anniversary. We will continue to host our Hong Kong series, High Tea Talk series. In fact, a survey was conducted earlier this year, and over 70% of the respondents said they attended the events to gain some insights from the keynote speakers. I hope you will enjoy Mr. Mahbubani's talk in a moment, and in this very relaxed ambience, where he will be telling us why he and his family have chosen to settle in Hong Kong and call this vibrant international metropolis their home. Do feel free to help yourself to some drinks. I think there we have some drinks. And also feel free to ask questions when Nury will be hosting the dialogue section later on. Lastly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Hong Kong UIQ for providing us with this venue for free, I understand, right? This is very cozy place and also very conveniently located in Central. So I think with this, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lau, and please. Thank you, Mr. Lau, and please be seated. Now, let's invite our keynote speaker of today, Mr. Prakash Mahbubani, Ma Tinong Sin Sang, partner of Moneta International Hong Kong, to share his story growing up in Hong Kong, a place he calls home. Mr. Mahbubani, please. Thank you.
大家好. Good afternoon. Thank you for all of you taking time out from your busy schedules to be here for today's event. And also Hong Kong iCube for providing us this venue and hosting us today. I'd like to thank our Hong Kong Foundation for inviting me to share my thoughts about my home, Hong Kong. 我想多謝團結香港基金俾我呢個機會同大家表達我對香港嘅心思，同埋我喺香港長大嘅過程。And Mr. Lau, for your very kind words. 我哋一定要跟呢啲前輩去學㗎。As I was reflecting on what to say today, I recalled a recent conversation I had with an advisor who asked me, "What is life?" I paused. He said, "Well, somebody called it a journey. One lady said it's a pit stop between hospitals." I continued to pause. Then I said, "Life is a gift." He was astounded because nobody had said this to him. I then shared this conversation with a very dear friend of mine. And he was, "Well, Prak, it's easy for you to say. You were born healthy and with all your faculties. But what if you were born in a place that was at war, that had no water or food, that was not safe?" It was in that moment I realized being born in Hong Kong was a gift. Hong Kong is the gift that keeps giving. No matter what it is that you want, it has it. We are an Indian family, and we have been here over 70 years, spanning 3 generations. My father had the courage to come here at a very young age. And the true benefactors of this are myself and my 3 sisters. I couldn't be happier that he chose to come to Hong Kong. It welcomed him. It gave him shelter and opportunity. It is a place that has churches, temples, mosques, and synagogues. A place where all cultures and disciplines are respected. It is amazing that we have such a multicultural, diverse population which lives in harmony. A truly multicultural melting pot. I was very fortunate to not only have the love of a mother, but that of a Chinese nanny, commonly referred to as a Lai Ma. I used to call her Jie Jie with affection. Jie Jie was my family. She was a wonderful human being. She tutored me and taught me in the locals and the ways and the customs of Hong Kong, from eating wonton mean and char siu fan, to 飲24味同埋打跌打酒. Having this kind of upbringing allowed me to have a very different perspective and shaped my journey being part of this multicultural metropolis. All my siblings and myself were educated locally. In our junior years, we went to local schools, and in our senior years, we went to local schools, British, ESF. My sister was very fortunate that she got to go to the Polytechnic, where she got her scroll from then Governor Edward Youde after graduating top of her class. We all have a lot of very happy memories of our time being educated in Hong Kong. When I was young, I was a keen athlete, but I knew I wasn't going to be good enough to go to the Olympics. But I did dream. I used to love doing a lot of sports. And 阿媽會同我講，仔成日掛住游水打波，點樣揾錢啊？喺香港長大好貴嘅，一定要揾錢㗎嘛 you know. Fast forward to today, we have world-class homegrown athletes in swimming and fencing. And probably in the near future, athletes that can win in the tennis Grand Slams and golf masters. I loved swimming and basketball, and I definitely got into my fair share of fights at Southern Kaohsiung. This is what epitomizes Hong Kong. We specialize and excel at everything. We create a base and foundation so that our children and citizens can succeed. I'm sure at this year's Olympics, we will have the greatest medal haul ever and the most gold medals we've ever had. We have the finest educational facilities with world-class rankings, so that many of the bright minds will one day become future innovators and leaders. With the expansion of the West Kowloon Arts Hub and the new stadium sports complex, there'll be even more choices in future in arts and sports. Arts and sports feed your soul. It is a reflection of the city. I started my career at the age of 18. I'm the only son and the youngest of 4, and I took my responsibilities to heart. My father arrived here in the 1950s, and he started his venture in the 1960s. I never had a formal education, but I'd like to think that the University of Life gave me a PhD. Our family business has primarily been a trading firm specialized in door and furniture hardware, also known as architectural ironmongery. Everyone in Hong Kong loves property, but you'd be surprised how much money you can make from just selling handles, hinges, and locks. I was very adventurous, and I used this as an opportunity to travel for sales. I've been to somewhere between 40 and 50 countries and well over 100 cities. One of the highlights of my travels was definitely going to Medellin in Colombia more than 15 years ago, just as the drug cartels were finishing their war, the home of Pablo Escobar. Hong Kong has grown to be a major finance hub today. Their transformation in the last 50 years has been nothing short of miraculous. It has always been a place that rewards you if you work hard and put in the effort. Very early on, we developed very modern shipping ports and an infrastructure for trade and growth. My two biggest interests are finance and food. We are lucky to have a stable currency which makes it so easy to do business. Finance is what makes Hong Kong tick. The banking system is so strong. The regulatory framework makes it so easy for any new visitors and residents. We all know when moving to a new city, one of the biggest hurdles you face is finance. And when that is made easy, people can focus on their housing, their jobs, their family, their own interests, and enjoy their life. We are now at the next frontier of finance, and with the government embracing the blockchain industry and launching spot crypto ETFs, we are at the cutting edge of finance. This will bring a lot of benefit to our city. I myself have been an avid investor in crypto for many years, and definitely not for the faint-hearted, and 100% not for you if you're over 60 years old. Many of you must be wondering how much money I lost in the recent crypto crash. Well, I didn't sleep for a year, but fortunately I didn't lose any money. In Hong Kong, you can invest in anything from stocks to property, to fine wines, watches, art, and even Bitcoin. We have specialists in every sector to cater to your needs. Food, where do I start? There is always this craving for home that we all have. My go-to is local food, cha chan tang. 3 little words, but it has 1,000 stories behind it. Hong Kong has some world-class items like nai cha, tan tat, dim sum, Peking Tian Gap. All my associates from across the border always speak so highly of our food, and whenever they come across, we always share a meal and do our work over food. In Hong Kong, family and food are intertwined. Whether you're sharing local favorites on a round table of 12, or Indian food on a long table, passing the biryani and naan along. Hong Kong has every type of cuisine for all budgets, and in the most interesting range of settings. 我去親茶餐廳食飯，啲小姐都會好奇怪愕然 surprise， 哇！點解呢個外國人鬼佬講廣東話咁流利嘅？ I've been able to meet many chefs in my culinary journey, and the highlight has to be Anne-Sophie Pick, who is the top female chef in the world. There are 79 restaurants in Hong Kong with Michelin stars, and many more with honorable mention. A top chef can take bad ingredients and make a good dish. But with a good chef, the possibilities are endless. People used to say the sky is the limit. But with us going to Mars and beyond, and AI, we have to consider that there is no boundary in the future. Hong Kong has the best ingredients. And if there's any limit, it is only because we have determined it ourselves. Having no limits to grow was what my mother was about. She was a majestic, graceful, but firm lady. She taught us all not to only work hard, but to be respectful to others. She always wanted to give back. In 1983, she started a charity with a few friends called Sadhu Vaswani Center, a government-recognized Indian charity. She always said to me, my dear son, you live with the world, not for the world. She could see the materialism that was emerging in the 1980s and wanted those much less fortunate than her to have much more than they did. This is what makes Hong Kong such a great place. It welcomes everyone. We have today so many more ethnically diverse charities started by non-native Chinese who all want to give back to show appreciation for what they have received. My daughter goes to the Kellett School. I was really surprised by the charity work that they do. Every Saturday, they open up the school to more than 100 underprivileged children so that they can have the experience of a top-notch education at no cost to them. This is where private and public service can meet each other. A Chinese proverb I often think of: if you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go for a hike. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. It is, after all, Chinese proverb. But if you want happiness for a lifetime, help someone else. My two dearest causes are cancer and children. My mother, unfortunately, was taken from us far too early due to cancer. One child with hope is a much greater investment when they go out in the world and succeed than anything you could possibly achieve by investing it yourself. Her legacy lives on with us, and I'm grateful that I can share this with my daughters. Not only did my mother not define us by our gender or qualify us by our ability, she made all of us learn the necessary skills to survive. Despite herself not having a formal education, she made it clear from very early on that we needed to learn Cantonese and integrate so that we would be able to get the best of the possibilities available. I do the same with my girls. Whether it is playing rugby or getting a black belt in Kung Fu, I never define them in any stereotypical fashion. I may be Indian, but I'm a Hong Konger first. And so I teach them to be international citizens with appreciation of all things different. But there's one very big difference between my childhood and that of my daughters. And again, it's three little words: Kai Mo So. Everybody here who's Chinese, over 50, they know what a Kai Mo So is. For the rest of you, it's a Chinese feather duster which has a very firm stick. None of us, this would be possible without the support of my wife. She is a wonderful human being who continues on my mother's work, always putting the family before herself. Although she was residing in Spain at the time, I actually met her in Hong Kong, in Lang Kwai Fong. It was love at first sight, some beautiful Hong Kong magic. My girls know how lucky they are to live in Hong Kong with access to the school, sports, beaches, trails, restaurants, shopping malls, and all of this with an amazing and efficient transport system. My elder girl will go to university next year, and one of our biggest considerations is safety. I have never truly appreciated how safe Hong Kong is. I think it is something truly very simple, but which we all take for granted. Indians have been woven into the cloth of Hong Kong from the early days of the police force to trading and the establishment of the Star Ferry. Mr. Modi, who was one of the founders of the Hong Kong University, the Ratanjis, whose hospital continues to serve all of Hong Kong today, and the Shroffs, who know no end to their charitable endeavors. I am proud to be on the committee of the Indian Chamber of Commerce, which was established in 1952. It is one of 5 and the only non-local chamber that has the special privilege of issuing documents specially related to trade. In the recent past, Indians were between 7 and 10% of the trade in Hong Kong. Being local and Indian here is having the best of both worlds. Sometimes when I need inspiration, I watch old interviews of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Recently, I heard Kobe say, "People talk about failure." He paused and then he said, "But you never fail. You only fail if you regress. But if you take time to analyze what happened, learn, improve, move forward, then it is just a lesson. So you never ever truly fail." Hong Kong has been an amazing place my whole life. And in the last few years, we've obviously had some challenges. And I've heard many voices saying that we have failed. But the reality is there is no failure. These are just lessons. When you grow, you are going to have times where you face extreme challenges. This is what makes Hong Kong so special. We always overcome each and every challenge to reach greater heights. Always remember when you hear somebody saying something negative, what is their bias and agenda? My life in Hong Kong 5 years ago and today is exactly the same, probably even a little better. There's a lot of discussion about what it would have been like if we would have emerged from COVID restrictions earlier, how we could have done things differently. It is very hard to look back. Rather, we should focus and look forward positively. You always hear this term, if I could go back in time. What was special is still special. We will just have a new and different special. Every era and decade will never be the same. So if you want to go back in time and change what was in the past, then you are saying nothing was ever truly special. You are what you think. So think big, work big, give and forgive big, love and laugh big, and live big. We are all individuals, but we should all remember that every one of us here and in Hong Kong are ambassadors. Whenever we are at restaurants, traveling, commuting, and we meet tourists, or we are speaking to friends and family overseas, we should just spend a few minutes and share with them all the joys we have living in Hong Kong, the wonderful activities, dining spots, the peaceful environment. This will create a joy and excitement that no YouTube video could possibly even do. When you build that kind of energy, it will have a ripple effect that goes much further than you can even imagine. 2024 has shown us that we are back and we are going to do it even better. Our positioning is so unique and we can harvest a lot of advantages from this. Where else in the world can you have a traditional breakfast, be in the great outdoors, and then be back in the city at work by lunchtime, and then go and have a beautiful night out after dining at a Michelin star restaurant, and doing this while meeting people from all over the world who are actually residents. It's only June, but there have been so many events. The art shows were very impressive, and the Rugby Sevens was an incredible spectacle. And by the way, if there's anybody here from Live Nation or Ticketmaster that can help me get concert tickets for Olivia Rodrigo, I'd be extremely grateful because my daughters really need it. The future is bright and much brighter than most people perhaps can even see. And I'm very happy to call this place my home. I truly believe that this will be the wonderful place for many more generations of Hong Kongers. I leave you with this.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop. And under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well you already know. So just imagine, just imagine. Nothing I can see but you when you dance, dance, dance. Feel good creeping up on you, so just dance, dance, dance. Come on, all those things I shouldn't do, but you dance, dance, dance. And ain't nobody leaving soon, so keep dancing. I can't stop the feeling, so just dance, dance, dance. I can't stop the feeling, so just dance, dance, dance. Come on. Ooh, it's something magical. It's in the air.
One family, one home, one Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahbubani, for your great sharing, and please be seated. 多謝晒馬生. Hong Kong is indeed the gift that keeps giving. We're a place where all cultures and disciplines are respected. It was fascinating to learn about your life story and your view of Hong Kong as a home. Indeed, Hong Kong is a place with different outdoor, cultural, and entertainment venues for finance, food, family, fun, philanthropy, and the future. Now, for our upcoming session, for our upcoming dialogue session, Mr. Nury Vittachi, editor of Friday Everyday, will be our session host. Let's invite Mr. Mahbubani onto the stage once again with Mr. Vittachi. Thank you.
Aha, the South Asians take over.
Yep.
Actually, I mean, South Asians have played a big role in Hong Kong. We're quite quiet about it. I remember years ago, I was walking through a car park, in the Star Ferry car park, and someone pointed to the word shroff and said, "What's that?" It was a tourist. And my Chinese friends said, "Oh, that's English for cashier." And my English friend said, no, that's Chinese for cashier. It's Indian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how South Asians fit, I think, into Hong Kong. Sort of under the surface, quite quiet, but actually very significant.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, news media talk about the expats leaving Hong Kong, but in fact, there's 10 times as many Asian expats as there are white people, and they really mean the number of white people has gone down slightly.
Yeah.
Why are the Asian expats invisible? Why are we not?
I think it's because in Hong Kong they still mix South Asian with Southeast Asian. So they sort of group us all into one big group. And if you look at us as Asians or non-Chinese, non-Japanese, sort of everybody with brown skin, then we're like in the millions. So therefore, no matter how many leave, to them it still seems like there's a lot of us. And whenever you go out on Saturday and Sunday in Hong Kong, you're just going to see a lot of Southeast Asians, but that get mixed up. And also the expats, the whites, they live in very concentrated areas. So when they leave, it becomes very obvious. And one of the real truths that nobody wants to talk about is that they'll pay $130,000 for a flat, but the Asians will ask for $80,000, and they go into City Super and Great and all of us and just pay anything. And we'll go online to Amazon and check if we can get it cheaper, and we'll go to the local wet markets. So I think it kind of hurts the bottom line a little more. So they talk about it more.
Right. Yes, there's all these different supermarkets in Hong Kong, but they're all actually owned by the same two companies. Right?
Oh yes.
Right, and the top ones are basically designed for the American bankers, and then we shop at the cheap ones. Right. Okay. Now you mentioned Bitcoin, and now that must have been very stressful. The way you remember how it went up to $70,000 or something, it went down again. So how did you survive all that?
Well, I got in early, so. Like Hong Kong property, it helps when you have a low cost basis. So you don't face potential loss. But the truth is, yeah, it was very stressful for year two through the whole quasi-financial crisis that we have from 20 to 23 until things seem to be globally a little better with the stock markets. And a lot of sleepless nights. I saw a lot of companies go bankrupt. But if you're smart about your allocation and you're careful how you manage your investments, then rightly or wrongly, in investments, there are going to be wins and losses. And you'll be able to absorb some of them and still live on very comfortably. So it's just another learning chapter.
Right. But you said you didn't sleep for a year, so you must have been stressed out, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, look at my hair. Look at my father. My father's 90. He's got more hair than me. So yes, it's there are definitely side effects of being adventurous.
Right. Yeah, let's move off the hair topic. Yeah, I mean, there's a chain of laundromats in Hong Kong, including one underneath my flat, which is laundry on one side and Bitcoin machines on the other. So basically, you can launder your underpants and launder your money on the same visit. But yeah, you obviously survived that. I'm interested in what you said about trading. I mean, and something as humble as hinges and door handles is actually a big business, right?
Yeah, well, if you look at Hong Kong, and even in the video you noticed 50 years ago, we probably had 10 or 20% of the buildings we have right now. And every building needs those basic components. And the whole world actually, until the sort of recent somewhat deglobalization, was actually on a growth spurt, especially in 中國人會叫新興國家, you know. So I was sort of ahead of my time. I was sort of very adventurous, so I would go to Brazil, Russia, and just being in the right place at the right time, being adventurous, taking risks, and it worked out because countries like Russia, when they emerged from the ruble crash after 50 years of communism, the country itself was empty, to say. So you could do a lot of sales, make a lot of money, and it was just good timing. You know, where they say hard work and preparation meets opportunity.
Right, right. I mean, this whole trading thing is interesting. I remember a couple of years ago, the Hong Kong government did a massive survey of all the different sort of professions that bring money into Hong Kong. And trading was top after, just before finance. Finance is number one, but trading was bigger than all other professions, including tourism,
Wow.
which really amazed me. And it was all small things, door handles and small things. I remember meeting one guy, and he said he was in the textile industry. And I said, what did you make? And he made the white cloth used for pockets. That's all he did, the white cloth used for pockets. It's those little things that make Hong Kong great, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember once coming across this statistic that Hong Kong was the world centre of plastic Christmas trees. Maybe not something to be proud of in artistic terms, but it makes a living. Okay, now you span two cultures. Do you feel part of the Chinese culture or part of the South Asian one?
Well, I'm fortunate because both of these cultures are mirror images of each other. Family, hard work, integrity, family meals, and Indians and Chinese both sort of follow the lunar calendar. So it's quite different from the West, and being able to speak the language definitely helped me. Plus, in Hong Kong, everything's clean, you know, the food's great, so whether you're eating Indian, Chinese, it's a way to really mix and become part with the locals when you dine with them in their cuisines, in their ways, like using chopsticks. And I think both cultures have taught me a lot. And I feel equal of both, and I'm very grateful to have both.
Right. I remember someone saying to me that what joins China and India, love of mathematics.
Yes, exactly.
And rice.
Exactly,
Maths
and science. Yeah, when you go to school and you're in a class and they walk in, they see the Chinese and Indian boys, they're like, okay, maths and science, you know? They're already like, okay, they're just going to be fighting for it, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yes, you've probably seen all these memes of the winners of science and math and spelling competition.
Oh, yeah, in America, yeah, the spelling bee. The last 20 years has been Indians, I think.
Right. I think that's because our names are so difficult to spell. That's probably it, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we learn from an early age complex spelling. We have to, otherwise we can't write our names, right? Now, you know, what can we do? You mentioned this earlier that you love Hong Kong, but there tends to be only negative stories shared about Hong Kong, especially in the media. They've got a downer on us. What can we do to get the truth out that Hong Kong is a very cool place still?
I think we're 120, maybe 150, 60 people here today. So it's really simple. All of us, I can see everybody looks pretty healthy, smiling, happy, and that's simple. This simple ability to even sit here in the middle of the day with this amazing view is something that's not available probably in more than half the world today. So we just need to be ambassadors ourselves and share the happiness that we have. And, you know, if you are old school, then you say it and you talk and you share. And if you're young and modern, well, you can use all the different social media platforms that you have and post small reels and just show people that we're still very happy no matter what people are saying. And the truth is, no country, city, economy, policy is perfect. There is no one shoe fits all. But I've thought about so many other countries, but there's still nowhere else I'd rather live than Hong Kong.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, you've lived here, I mean, all your life. Can we talk a bit about our neighbours over in Shenzhen? Now, when you first went into Shenzhen, it must have been so different, and yet what a miracle has happened there. I mean, they're our neighbours, but they're also rivals leaving us in the dust, aren't they?
Yeah, see, evolution and integration is a part of life. We are part of the GBA, and if they up their game, then we also have to up our game. There's no choice. We can't continuously complain, and I think a lot of the local businesses are unfortunately getting a wake-up call that there has to be a whole repricing, and this starts at the top with the properties. But I feel very much for the people. So I think if the property adjusts, I just hope that they don't reduce everybody's salaries, and so the common man can still enjoy a quality of life. And I think slowly but surely, hopefully we are very modern, we can employ technology to help us reduce our costs, and we will understand our role, our path, and we will be able to compete with them. We'll just have to figure out where our niche is.
I mean, yes, you reminded me, I used to be a property editor of the South China Morning Post years ago, and I remember it was always a theme of, oh no, the Hong Kong property prices just won't go down, what do we do? And now it's, oh no, the Hong Kong property prices are going down, what do we do? I mean, you kind of can't win, can you? It's always negative.
Well, you know, a lot of times people ask me, do you think it's good that the property prices have gone up or down? And I tend to come at this from a very different direction. I think the youth of today has a lot to offer. And the problem that I personally find is when property prices go up, people don't even want to study. The 18-year-olds want to go and become property agents. And this is a big problem because in the long run, property doesn't do anything for your long-term GDP growth. You need industry, you need talent, you need innovation. If some of these kids and students were not so excited about being a property agent and getting a 50,000 check because they sold one property, then perhaps we would have, you know, the next Jensen Huang or Elon Musk. So for me, in the long run, property prices going down is actually a good thing. We will have a more stable environment, and this will give people the idea that they have to look at other avenues. And a lot of the bright minds today may become leaders and innovators and do things that are completely different. And Hong Kong will reclaim what it once was.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, interesting. I remember in 2019, there was all that kerfuffle and there was a court case. And I remember one of the defendants was a 17-year-old, and he said he rented a spare flat to keep his bombs in. And I was thinking, a 17-year-old with a spare flat? I've been like, okay, there's something strange going on here, especially to keep his bombs. I mean, adults can't afford spare flats, let alone 17-year-olds. So yes, the young people angle is very interesting, isn't it? I mean, have you been to Shenzhen recently and seen all the shopping and stuff that's going on there?
Last year, it's been a short while, but yes, I've seen a lot of it on TikTok, on Reels. My friends send me videos, and definitely they're making progress, but that's natural. It's humanity. Humanity is designed, and Indian and Chinese are very hardworking, innovative people. So both countries are marching forward and doing very good things for their population.
Okay, well, I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions, give you a chance to think of some questions from the floor, and then we'll open it up. And he's a very articulate man, so I want you to ask really hard questions, right? Because I want to see him squirm and answer difficult questions. So start thinking of some really tough questions. But let me ask another one first. What's your long-term view? You seem to me like an optimist. Are you going to stay in Hong Kong?
If you look at my father, he's 90. And he's smiling and he's healthy. I mean, that is the epitome of optimism. You don't get to that age without being optimistic. So that's inbred. My mother, unfortunately, she's gone. But I couldn't even call her an optimistic. She believed, just by belief, that you can overcome anything. So I think I'll always be here. It ticks all my boxes. Yeah, I won't lie. I have thought about other countries and other cities, and I look and I think, but yes, Singapore, Dubai, London, New York, they're all wonderful. But if you make your checklist, safety, education, ease of travel, residency, all these things, Hong Kong is still my top choice. And you know, people in the US, many of them don't even leave the country. They travel within the country. And if you look at the transport and infrastructure, railway and network that we are building to China, I mean, I'm lucky, maybe I can afford flying, but I think a lot of people who are here can really find it very easy to take trains into China and be in so many different cities. Just like in US, people just go from LA to New York, and for them that's a big adventure, and Hong Kong is lucky. China has considered us a part of their country, and they've built all the network and routes to us. So now we can go and explore everything.
Right. And many people are. You've seen the queues at the shops at Sam's Club and Costco in Shenzhen. They're amazing. Okay, let's open it to the floor. Anybody got a question? Yes, so we'll just start over here with Ruslan. We've got a... Oh, his microphone is approaching.
Over there, over there.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask two questions, because based on your presentation, opening remarks, it's quite interesting to see kind of like that sort of the whole experience about Hong Kong. Now, my question is about, the first question would be about philanthropy. So which NGOs or causes are kind of like closest to your heart, and why? And the second question is about, how do you think growing up in Hong Kong has actually influenced your cultural identity, given that you've got a very rich Indian identity and heritage? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, although I must admit I don't actively, personally get involved in the Cancer Fund, but definitely the Cancer Fund is one of my preferred charities, and I make it a point to support them financially each and every year as much as I can, because I actually asked them to volunteer in their offices. They have an office, and they said, you know, it's been 5 years, and every year I email them and say, I'd like to take 2 days off or an afternoon off and come in and just help you fill envelopes and, you know, the work that needs to be done. It's not all glamorous, just, you know, sitting here on a stage and having people fuss over you. There's a lot of work that goes on in the background, but they have enough staffing power. The other is obviously Sadhu Vaswani Center, which is something my mother started. It's more of a grassroots charity. It's not something that's maybe well publicized. But like this, there are many Indian and even Western smaller charities that just go about their business of giving back and helping people where they are needed. And as I said, I recently came across Kellet, which I thought it was amazing. You know, you have school Monday to Friday, and they open up a school on Saturday, and they allow all these kids to come in. They're living in cage homes, small homes. They cannot even dream of going to a school like this. And even just 1 day a week, it's a dream for them. I mean, for some people, going to Disneyland is wonderful. For these kids, this is their Disneyland. Even to just be able to use a swimming pool in a safe environment is a privilege that we take for granted, you see. Growing up in Hong Kong, you see, the beauty is that if you go back 50 years, the buses here, like most of the world, was not air conditioned. You know, we didn't have an app. We didn't look at our app and say, oh, now we're going to go down, the bus will be here in 3 minutes. No, you stood in this heat, you waited for that blue color China Motor bus. The olden days taught us patience, discipline. I mean, when I left the house to go to play sports, my mother would give me exact change. There was no credit card, there were no apps. And if I made mistake, because everything was, you know, 50 cents, 60 cents, 80 cents, and if I made the mistake of putting 50 cents in the bus instead of 40 cents, I couldn't get home. And then I was in trouble. And I couldn't call her because, you know, going to a store and asking somebody for a phone, they were like, wow, you know, like I mean, so every minute detail had to be well thought out. You had to be calculated. There wasn't theft. It wasn't like, there wasn't so much petty crime as major cities have. But you needed to be disciplined. And you needed to think. When your mother said you need to be home at 7:30 for dinner, you needed to leave the basketball ground at 6 because you might have just missed the bus and the next bus will come at 6:30. So you had to play it safe. So you were just naturally taught a lot of things because of the times we grew up in.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Education also is something that Indians and Chinese are obsessed with. Education.
Yeah, I mean, I had the opportunity to go to university. Fortunately, my father could afford it, and my teachers were like, he really should go. But as you can see, we have quite an age gap, and we are a traditional family, and we had a very good family business. So I made the personal decision at 18 to say, well, I do like the business, and I love my family. I mean, to me, family first. It's always the most important thing. So I decided at 18 and I went on, but I am really excited for my daughter to go and explore the world and live her dreams. One thing I learned, I never, all Asian parents, when the children are 13 or 14, so are you going to do maths? Are you going to do science? Are you going to do economics? Are you going to do physics? My daughter came to me at the age of 13 when she was deciding her GCSE courses. She came, I am a tiger dad. I won't hide it. So she came to me, she said, Dad, I'm planning to drop Chinese. I want to learn Spanish. I'm going to do media, business studies. And she was thinking, oh my God, my father's going to tell me where's the economics and physics. And all I said to her was very simple. And this is my life motto. I said to her, Lara, is this what you want to do? Yes, Dad. Is this really, you love what you're going to do? Yes. So you will give me 120%? She said, yes. I said, if you're happy and you promise me that you will give me your utmost effort, then please do what you want. And that has always been my character. But dream so big that you suck the air out of the room, that people should know that you want it. You have to show that hunger. The world is very competitive today. So saying being obsessed with education is great, but today I think the children need to understand how they can translate that education into a real life scenario.
Mm-hmm. Now, Lara, we have that on tape, saying that you can do anything you like. Okay, so I'll give you a copy later. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Some questions over here.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for your sharing. Living in a foreign country, I also lived in many countries before. And you have good things. You share with us, your good things in Hong Kong. As a foreigner, born in Hong Kong and grown up in Hong Kong, you have your happiest things and also saddest things. Would you tell us what is your happiest things in Hong Kong and the things you don't like in Hong Kong?
For me, it's bias because my experience are definitely a little different from the average Indian because of my ability to speak Cantonese. So when I go into any restaurant, and not today, we can go back 20 years in my childhood when Hong Kong had a different kind of multicultural when we were a British colony. So, but it was different because as soon as I walk in, although they may not know how to converse with me, but I made life easy and it avoided certain issues just by knowing how to speak Cantonese fluently. So definitely my experiences are different. Hong Kong in the last 20, 30, 50 years has faced the same issues of all countries. I think I have to be honest, there is, not for a better word, but there's some sort of racism. But this is part of every modern city. This is not Hong Kong. I mean, whether you go to Europe, you go to South America, you go to Africa, Middle East, it's just a different type of racism where one class of citizens is compared higher to the others. And I did face this in my youth. But I think over the last 5, 7, 10 years, this has improved a lot in Hong Kong. And also being able to speak Cantonese helped me shorten the problem. So, there was a time when I was on the tram, I'm obviously quite large, you know, I'm a big guy. So I'm standing there, and this old Chinese lady was standing there going, wow, 鬼佬阻住地球轉, you know? and she's thinking like, I have no idea what she's saying. So I just politely told her, I said, you know, it's no need to be so rude. You could have politely asked me to move. She got the message, and it was cut short. So I must say my situation is a little different. And finally, I think Hong Kong's been very fortunate. We've been very lucky. We've grown. I mean, I don't even know how many billionaires or multi-billionaires we have in Hong Kong. But I think we need to detach from that now. And I think that's, on some level, been a bit of an underlying issue where the money got to everybody's sort of head. And sometimes people thought they were smart, or that they did it, or it was, but it wasn't. It was just right time, right place, good luck. And, you know, they bought a property, it went up, and then they thought they could do whatever you want. So, yeah, I've had difference of opinions with people on many things. But like I said, for me, having the upbringing I had, having a Chinese nanny, speaking pretty good Cantonese, and understanding the ideology of the locals made my journey, I think, much better than average.
Interesting. I had a couple of Cantonese speaking foreign friends who were in a bar in Wan Chai. This was a few years ago, talking to two local girls in English. And then one of them turned to the other and said in Cantonese, "Which do you want, the fat one or the ugly one?" And he said the romantic moment just disappeared. Yes, question behind, yeah, at the back.
Thank you, Mr. Mahbubani, for the very wonderful sharing and very impressive, and I learned a lot, and it's very inspiring. I just came back from Singapore. You know, in Singapore, many Indian Singaporean are excelling. They're doing very well, and Singapore government is also, you know, having a kind of a racial integration policies. If you would advise the Hong Kong government, what do you think that the government should do more ethnic minorities integration to the Hong Kong community? At least, you know, in Singapore they have a Indian president, but here we don't have a secretary from India in the government. So what's your advice? Thank you.
You know, it's amazing. You use those two golden words. Ethnic minority. Why are we a minority? There's like 60,000 Indians here, and probably like maybe 5,000 Americans or 10,000 British. When did we become a minority? We may be a minority to the Chinese, but I've always wondered, and I actually brought this up with our Hong Kong Foundation. I said, why are we referred to an ethnic minority? I mean, with all due respect to all the Americans and British, they're not called ethnic minorities. They're called British. So I think this is something that's been part of our history, and I think it's time those two words should be gently washed away. Indians are an economic power. We are very cultural. We speak English very well. And, you know, we are contributors to every economy, every country, every city, every place that we live. We are net contributors. I think that for Hong Kong and Singapore, first we need to ask ourselves, there are, after all, 8 billion people in this world. Our population is only 8, and Singapore is, I'm not sure, maybe 5 now or 6. So, you know, let's have perspective. This is a competition of 13 million people. There are 8 billion people in this world. Surely there's a lot we can do. I mean, we can just be patient. It's been tough. They came out of COVID earlier. They've been more aggressive, more forward-thinking. But I think we talk of history in hundreds and thousands of years, and everybody's got all caught up and knotted up in this month and the next 6 months. Every place has up and downs, and maybe at the moment we don't all feel that it is our best moment. But if you ask Singaporeans, the last 30 years was not their best moment, you know. They've had a good moment now for the last 24 to maybe 36, max 48 months. So I think sometimes we need to zoom out, have perspective, and ask ourselves, is this a WhatsApp? You know, a country can't be built on WhatsApp or Reels or TikTok, you know. You can't build it and after one day say, oh, wow, it feels good. government will work slowly. There are a lot of bright people. I'm sure they're thinking deeply on this. I mean, I've been to quite a few events where Bernard speaks, and he's very clear and very candid about it. And that's why we have our Hong Kong Foundation. That is why they're growing. That's why they have policies and meetings, because they're concerned. And I have faith, I have belief, and we have the economic resources and definitely the brain power. It'll take a little time. I can't say there's any one thing that's super concrete I can put my finger on. I think there has to be still some adjustment with the property policies. I think the recent adjustments, for me, there was some misstep there personally. But that is, of course, for people at a more senior level to consider.
A question from this side.
Yeah, thank you very much for the many positive aspects which I share. I'd like to ask you about two negative aspects.
Sure.
And see what your response is to that. Number one is housing policy. In 2011, Donald Tsang announced the minimum size of apartments in Hong Kong should be 375 square feet. In 2022, President Xi said the number one topic for Hong Kong, number one topic should be decent housing. But in the meantime, the minimum size of apartments going down, I think now they're talking about 75 square feet. That's my first question. What would you do if you're in charge? The second one is rubbish collection. We hear time and again that we're going to have a rubbish collection system. Hong Kong is going to be a more decent city. But what is the order of the day is delays and postponement. Again, what would you do? What would you recommend? Or other words, why is it all going wrong?
Okay. As I said, property is always a central subject in Hong Kong. I actually agree with President Xi. I think housing is the most important thing, I mean, every single person deserves that basic human right. And unfortunately, perhaps in the past, certain policies were not carried out correctly. But again, like I said, these things will not get reversed overnight. Policies that are entrenched for 20, 30, 50 years don't get reversed overnight. But even now, with the reduction in property prices, the general size of flats that are being built are bigger. I know there was at the height a time when there was 75 square feet, and honestly, it was shocking to me. I felt bad just reading it and the prices that were being charged. But you can look at our groceries. I've long been the fact that most modern countries, like in India, they have a minimum retail price. In Singapore, a lot of the groceries here are seriously overpriced. So while it may not be the old system, but I think sooner or later, there will come a time when the government will say, okay, enough is enough, and now it's time. And it will need the private sector to come on board. I must say, I was at an event the other day by our Hong Kong Foundation, and the tourism minister sat up and said, we can do this if the private sector helps. And then the private sector stood up and said, we can do this if the public sector helps. So let me say this. I'm one of the fortunate ones. You can understand, I've been here a long time, my family's done well, but I personally feel it's time that the private sector understands it's not their privilege to always have a golden egg. The profit margins in groceries, in properties, in retail are just exorbitant. And like I said, that has to come from the top. But something that's been entrenched for 50 years is going to take time. And I think we are now on that path, slowly but surely. As far as the waste program, it's like the taxis here, right? Imagine, you still have to pay cash. I mean, we are improving. There are a lot of things in Hong Kong that have followed, again, unfortunately, monopolistic kind of theories. And everything has been controlled by few. And as we are becoming a true part of China, these 8 billion people, I think we have to understand that we've been lucky and we will continue to be lucky, but perhaps the playing field has to be more level. So the waste program is all about entrenched values and rights and privileges. But definitely Hong Kong is a small city. We have limited space. So for us to re-engineer many concepts will take more time because we don't have the area or the space to create all those facilities to manage or change. And right now in a time that, the inflation in terms of food and gas is so high, people are feeling the pain to improve the waste program. But I have faith that before 2030, Hong Kong will have completely transformed itself.
Let's have Jane over here at the front. And then when we've got one at the back over there. Right.
Hi, Prakash. Thank you very much for your excellent speech. I learned a lot from you. But I want to come back to your title of your topic, Gift and Giving. I still recall when you first shared with me, you did mention quite a bit of your plan for allocating your family resources to make yourself available to give to the community. And I'm sure you have been making a very good strategies of this. Would you like to share with us your thoughts, your ideas?
Yeah, well, I think I'm just average Joe. I'm definitely not your, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. But I genuinely believe that, I'm 52, my father's 90. We're fortunate, let's say we have our own property, so we don't pay rent, so we have less financial pressure. I think you reach a certain point where you have to start saying to yourself, how much do I actually need? And if you think you need X, well, okay, you don't know inflation, so add maybe 10, 20, 30%. And then at some point you need to say, well, what am I going to do with the rest of this? So I've always believed that if you are fortunate enough to make money, then you are not really a gatekeeper. It's not a gate. It doesn't stop with you. You are one of the chosen ones, the blessed ones. The money should flow through you. In fact, you are blessed because you have been given that opportunity to bless others. Even Warren Buffett said that, if you feel good, imagine how it would be for somebody else to feel that good. And so, for me, I think once you come to a certain age, because yes, in your 20s and 30s and 40s, maybe there are many years ahead and challenges and unknown expenses, but you should start thinking about giving back. And everybody just increased their allocation to charity just marginally as they got older every year. So maybe it was X and then you add 10% the next year and you keep doing this. You may not see what you have achieved, but I think you go to sleep knowing that you've done something. And I must say that I suffered a lot in the 2008 financial crisis. It was a difficult time in Hong Kong. And until 2008, I used to tell everybody, oh, I'm very smart. Yeah, I'm very smart. After 2008, I realized, no, I was just lucky. And today, after, 中國人話大步攬過咁多波浪，08年啊，2021年啊，23年啊，咁多嘢， I think it's just my mother's blessing. So I think this is the gift, that if I do some good in this world, that blessing somewhere above will come back to the next generation. And I won't see it, but I know. And I will always be grateful and thankful to somebody above who gave me the opportunity to do this. Because not everybody even gets the opportunity to do good.
Yeah, we have someone waiting patiently over on my right.
Hi, Prakash. Hi, Nury. Thank you very much for your sharing. Very inspiring. My name is Kenneth Huan. Last year, I was involved with the Strive and Rise mentorship program, and I intentionally asked for like a non-ethnic Chinese mentee, and then I contacted like a lot of them. Like I noticed that some like local Hong Kong young people, and my mentee is from like Filipino background, Pakistani and Indian background as well, and they were born and raised in Hong Kong. But interestingly, a lot of them they don't speak Cantonese, and I was quite amazed that like you got the the Cantonese language, and it's part of your native tongue as well. It's amazing. But I'm just wondering, like, do you have any advice on advising like young people, young Hong Konger, non-ethnic Hong Konger, like what advice would you give them in terms of to make themselves become a part of Hong Kong, for example? How do they enjoy more being a Hong Konger? Thank you, Prakash.
Sorry, can I clarify? You said a non-native Hong Konger, you mean?
Non-ethnic Chinese Hong Konger.
Yeah, that means you mean Asians or South Asians.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you really want to understand Hong Kong, then it's really very simple. Go to the night markets, go to the parks, go to Victoria Park, go to Mong Kok, go and see how the locals live. I mean, the locals don't really live in these tall glass towers. They live, in Cheung Kwan O, in Mong Kok, in Yuen Long, in Seung Soi, and Fan Lang. So go there, walk on the streets, go to the outlying islands, see the root of our culture, understand it, not from a book, not from YouTube. Go smell it, feel it, taste the local cuisines. And if you want to enjoy a city, and like everybody says, when you go to France, if you don't speak French, the people just look at you like that. Well, it's the same in every country. If you go to the Middle East and you don't speak Arabic, you don't get as far. So integrate, take time, go out, try to pick up the language. I know everybody says, oh, Cantonese is so hard. It's so hard. And I guess, I just started learning at the age of 0. So for me, it just came naturally. But try. And the other thing you can do is, being non-native Chinese, is try to participate in some Chinese local charities. Because this will give you an opportunity to see how they approach life. And they will also, you will make friends. You will end up making some friends, get into some conversations, end up being part of something that is bigger than you. And I think it's always endearing when people meet people who do things with no benefit. This is why I made a lot of friends. A lot of people who meet me realize that in Hong Kong, it's very transactional. Everybody has an agenda. Who are you? Where are you from? What's your club membership? Blah, blah, blah. Well, no, when you go and serve at a local charity, there's no agenda. You're going to start at the grassroots. You're going to be helping an old man walk, or playing with an orphan, or just doing basic duties. And once you do these two things, you will automatically have a sense of belonging. And through them, you will also learn some of the language, and you will feel happier.
Yeah, let's have this gentleman here.
Okay. Thank you. You mentioned how fortunate we are in Hong Kong, and many places in the world don't have the kind of good fortune that we do. And you've also mentioned charity. Are there things that Hong Kong can do to help those places in the world that have been less fortunate than we have?
I think actually, I mean, last year, for example, I volunteered at the Box of Hope. It's a charity run by a lot of the schools. They collect household basic toiletries, items like this, and then I actually went to Exchange Square, which is, I believe, given to them free for that week or few weeks, and I stood there for 4 hours. My back hurt, but it's something I wanted to do, and I packed boxes, and I stood there with 50 other locals, mixed ethnics, from Chinese to Indian to Western, and all those boxes, if I'm not mistaken, go out to schools, or a majority of them in Southeast Asia. And actually, there are a lot of Indian charities that give back to India, and I'm sure the American charities also do things to help people back home. So Hong Kong actually is a fantastic place that way. I think, there should be a statistic published on, I couldn't find it, and I'd love to know how many government-recognized charities there actually are. That means they've passed the test, that they're actually doing something, or maybe even broken down, or break it down by ethnic, or sort of Chinese and non-Chinese. I think that would be a statistic that would shine a beautiful light in Hong Kong, because I can say the Indians are doing a lot. We have so many charities, and we constantly give back. And I think it's unspoken, and it's not highlighted and publicized. And I think that's something we could do, because although we, seem like a very sort of on-the-go kind of, agenda-driven kind of city, but I believe at the heart there's a very beautiful soul here. There's a lot of givers, and we just need to bring it out to the front.
Now, just throwing a statistic there, I think John Lee said in a speech last year that Hong Kong has 10,000 registered charities, and the total money given out is by Hong Kong people is about US $1 billion. So for one city, that's actually pretty astonishing.
Yeah.
So well done, Hong Kong. Good. I think we have a chance for one more question. Anybody? Okay, let's have this gentleman.
Yeah, thank you. You have been very kind, hiding bad things. But you haven't answered my question.
Yeah.
Oh.
When I was in junior school, I did fight with Indian boys. I used bad words, The bad word you must hear, to address the Indians. Okay? So you haven't exactly answered my question. What is your happiest thing in Hong Kong? Something you've done, you think that is great for Hong Kong. Or the saddest thing you have in Hong Kong, you don't like it. Maybe somebody call you a cha.
Let me say.
Sorry.
No, absolutely. I'm not offended at all.
I should something like that.
I want to share something with you.
Yeah. So that is what I want to hear, because I want to learn it from a foreigner who is ready to share with us, so that we can improve. Okay, thank you very much.
You see, bad things are only bad if you hold on to them. Like Kobe Bryant said, there's no failure. You just learn. And I can't paint a city with one brushstroke. Just because one individual is angry or somewhat illiterate, and don't get me wrong, when I was young, I had different issues with different ethnicities, not only Chinese. Not any race or population is perfect. Not the Indians, not the Europeans, not the Arabs. So this has nothing to do with the race. For my time here, bad things happen, but like I said, yeah, people use slurs, they said wrong things, but honestly, if you are going to hold on to these things, you're never going to achieve anything. We are all bigger than this. Like I said, one man, one home. Even if I were to move to New York, or I was going to Singapore, or even if you are, let me share this with you. We have in our Indian culture many really great religious leaders. We have sometimes criticism of religious leaders. Somebody criticized the Pope the other day. At one time people didn't like what Mother Teresa. So if the best of the best get criticized, and we take it so personally, we're not going to achieve anything. Somebody said it, and the beauty is this. Usually when somebody says something negative to you, they don't even know you. It's just probably they had a fight with their wife that day. Or they were just poorly educated, or they don't know better. So you just got to let it go. And good things? Oh, so many. I can't honestly, if you want, I'll share with you the highlight, the true highlight in the last few years. Before COVID, I got involved with a charity, and they were helping some schools in Tsing. In Hong Kong we call it, 地鐵站嗰啲最遠嗰啲就比較即係冇咁幸福嘅So I went out to Tsing. It was around Christmas. I threw a Christmas party for like 4 or 5 schools. They got all the kids into one auditorium. I had already visited these schools and seen some of these underprivileged and sort of less privileged families. And they had many ethnic minorities also, just to explain. And I did this party, and they said, could you donate this amount of money, and we will get pizzas and chips and toys, and then, all the kids who have done well in each class, and you come on stage and you hand them out gifts. But there was one single moment, and I was with my daughter Lara, because I always told her, be grateful, understand, this is a privilege. My mother brought me up with these simple words. With great privilege comes great responsibility. And with great responsibility comes great privilege. We sat there and we talked to this girl as she was enjoying a simple slice of Pizza Hut. And I said, would you rather have more food or toys? In my mind, it was toys. I mean, which kid doesn't like toys? That's what we all need. She said, I would rather have food because sometimes at home we don't have enough food. I started crying because then you know what is humanity. So that highlight of my last 5 years, to understand.
A powerful message. So I'm going to hand over to Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Vittachi. Thank you, Mr. Mahbubani and Mr. Vittachi. Thank you, Mr. Mahbubani and Mr. Vittachi for the dialogue session, and please be seated. Thank you all for coming today. We look forward to seeing you at our next upcoming event with the next Our Hong Kong Stories featuring Dr. Jim Thompson in July. Thank you very much.